jingle. So here we are. We're crawling to the end of the year, hands and knees. I mean, you kind of see it, looking at myself at this little Zoom screen thing. Whew, somebody needs a break. So we thought, okay, we haven't recorded anything. Well, I suppose we've been very sporadic. We went out with a good one. I felt it was great. I really enjoyed having Stefan Naik and London Lyceum and Brandon and the boys, and that was great. And it did spur on a few conversations which were interesting, and I'll reserve comment on those for next year, where we'll talk more about 1689 federalism, federal visionism. It just keeps stirring. We'll keep stirring, but so got a few things lined up there. I don't want to say too much in case they fall through. Don't want to get everyone's hopes too high there, but just some cool stuff to talk about, some exciting stuff, and got some good guests lined up for next year. Very excited about that too. One that I will go ahead and just let you guys know, Dr. Gian, who has written numerous books. The one I got in my hand is Biblical Theology, which is really, it's like a really, I'll use this as a text for the class I'm teaching next year, because it's just such a great, maybe slightly more accessible sort of condensing of Klein's material, really. I mean, he's just faithful to Klein, and right. he just sort of, he wants it out there, for people to read, and really it's that book that we sort of want written, actually. So it's just it's a really good book. It's very dense, but it's not like an easy read. It's not super accessible, but for seminary level stuff. Okay. And it's
first
just
year, second year, third year, where would you pitch it?
Yeah, maybe like second-ish, third, maybe. Yeah. But
so it's not survey intro stuff, but like sort of the next.
It kind of is. It kind of is. It goes through all the covenants, and it goes through all the biblical theology involved. But I suppose why I say it's kind of accessible is that it basically takes the pain out of it. You wouldn't be reading Kingdom Prologue, basically. And let's actually check this out. I think it's
you don't have to pull out your hyphenated dictionary.
Yeah, exactly. Let's check this out. So that's the size of Kingdom Prologue. That's they're actually like more or less the same size. So actually, shouldn't feel the pang too much reading Klein, but everyone who's tried reading Klein knows it's not that easy. You just got to go real slow. So I don't know. I feel like you can get through this quicker. It's a bit more of a summary of Klein's full of thought mixed with Gian's own contributions, which are really good. And anyway, so this isn't the book that we'll be talking. Well, I suppose we'll talk about it as well. But he's just written another book called Biblical Eschatology, which I just bought and I'm currently reading. So bringing the best of that Vossian Kleinian tradition to bear, I think. Just working through, just showing how all the covenants entertain this theme of eschatology and just really bringing it out. So very good. And he's written on Calvin extensively. He's so he went to Westminster, Philadelphia. Anyway, we'll tell you more about him when we have him on. Go check out his books though. And that's J.K. Gian, and we'll say, and that's like we locked it in for the first thing of the let's say February. So that's gonna be pretty cool. I'm looking forward. I've chatted with him before. He's such a good guy, and just really excited to have him on the show. So that's the one guy I'll mention up front. Now that's not what I was going to talk about at all, even though that took a long time for me to say. which
is a long time to find that book.
Yeah, which is like, symptomatic of this whole problem that I'm experiencing right now. I'm moving slowly on everything. It's just, I'm crawling. I'm not walking, I'm crawling. So what I was going to say is we need a break. And so we thought, let's just, rather than, we've got these last two pesky little chapters in
Covenant Theology.
In the Covenant Theology book that we've been reviewing. Oh, not reviewing, just talking about. And yeah, I don't know. They weren't that great, were they? They were just like...
Yeah. I mean, that's in and of themselves, they're great chapters. I mean, they what they do is they'll underline anyone who wants to see that covenant is in the warp and woof of Scripture. I mean, it's they just show covenant everywhere. They show where the Abrahamic covenant is everywhere, the Mosaic covenant is everywhere, the Davidic covenant is everywhere. What it doesn't do is it doesn't take sides on the burning questions, which is really what we like to tackle.
Exactly.
So, we want to know, how do you see the covenant of works, and how does that feature into the law gospel contrast? And are you defining grace as demerited favor, and how where are you putting the law in the Christian life? And so they don't get into the nitty-gritty of that stuff. But overall, I mean, it's one of the things I did appreciate about the Hebrews chapter was if there's anywhere in the New Testament that's going to teach you how to read the Psalms in a Christological fashion, it's going to be the book of Hebrews.
Yeah. Amen.
And so, totally appreciated that perspective. I mean, every Psalm has three perspectives. You're always looking at, you got to read the Psalm through David's eyes. You got to read the Psalm through, the New Covenant believer's eyes, but you've always got to read every Psalm as if spoken by Christ. Yeah. Just to sort of look at, which Psalm, what sort of Psalm you're looking at. And Robert J. Cara, who did the Covenant in Hebrews, he certainly drew a lot of that out.
Yeah, very technical chapter as well, very detailed. Just that smaller detail stuff. Yep. It was helpful for that. Just for getting through tons of, almost to the point of why is this relevant again? It's just sort of like
you're preaching
data.
Through Hebrews, that's the text you want to go to.
Yeah, it's like
great resources. It's going to take you through the footnotes into great resources.
Yeah. Now, just so what I thought we could do, and then the last one was the Johannine epistles, which. Yeah, it was kind of a bit of a letdown, to be honest, because I mean, he did a similar sort of thing, actually. Everything you've just said for Hebrews, I feel like can be reapplied there again. But like, there were some big texts, big league deal texts that weren't touched, which I felt like,
sort of
wow.
had to try and touch on everything, so you couldn't make much of the most important things. Because I mean,
even
whenever you're dealing with the Book of Revelation, I mean, I've listened to Greg Beale's lectures through the Book of Revelation. I've preached through the Book of Revelation. I wrestled through his big commentary on the Book of Revelation, and you just know that this is what the whole Bible is pushing toward. Every theme that's ever been touched on in the Old Testament is brought to a climactic, massive tapestry, and it's you're just looking for that big finish, and he doesn't quite exploit it in ways that you'd love to see it sort of wrapped up with a bow, but he does hint at everything, but he doesn't sort of drill down into the depth.
Yeah, no, well said. So, I thought what we could do is just make one or two comments. We're going to very quickly kind of wrap this up. It's not going to be huge.
Those are my one or two comments.
Okay, well, I'll make two more then. All right, so I'll just try and deepen that out a little bit. But and then maybe just just wanted to mention, we're still around, we're kicking, but we need a break. I need to just not do anything for a little bit and just what do you do?
He's just earned a PhD. He's finished. He's empty.
Yeah, I mean, what's pretty awesome. What's quite good news and big news and all that is that the manuscript just I got to offer a publication from Wolfenstock through Pickwick. So that's awesome. So that's in. That's.
How much are they going to sell those for?
I think it shouldn't be too bad, actually. If I was looking around, it's not like $100, or it's more like $50.
Wow, really? Okay.
Yeah,
that's totally within
totally. Range. And I think that if I'm not mistaken, it's going to be on. You can get on Kindle or EPUB and all that as well, which is cool. That was one of the things I really wanted to make sure happened. I was cool to go with a print. The other options are like Lexum and all that, but I like the idea of I like the way Wolfenstock deal with things, and so anyway, so we'll see. But now we got all these deadlines and all these things to do, so it's like the whole thing's racking up again, and it's exciting that I start teaching next year, but I still got to I got to do these lectures, and so all these things are coming up, and then a few more journal articles on the rise. So it's busy even next year before I even begin, so I'm feeling like, okay, let's just wisely take a little break over Christmas and whatnot. But that said, how I know, actually, let me just throw this in there. How I know I need a break? I start reading a lot of philosophy. It's like a thing for me. I realize the pattern emerges every time.
Where do you go back to? Is it like the idealists or the rationalists?
No, always the Stoics. Always the Stoics, and just basically, I just find like wow, why are they speaking? I feel this craving in my soul for Stoics, and then I read them, and then it starts me on this whole new thing. Then I'm like, I wonder how this interacts with Confucius, and then I'm on this whole. Then I'm putting down weird like books, that are just the East and West philosophical origins and how they flow. I'm like, I don't care about any of this stuff normally. It's more just, it's like this one ultra sort of like cry of my brain for rest of some sort. Anyway, so it's one of the ways I've learned to listen to myself. Okay, now before I say anything more, let's just quickly wrap up here. I wanted to just mention he does show you one thing. The reason I think it would be wise to, if you did want to read these articles, is, and I think we've said this before, it's sort of, they form really helpful. They might not take the particular angle or edge that we want to take on certain issues, but they are just great. Like if you compare them to, I don't know, any sort of random scholarly article or essay on the covenants in Hebrews, it's going to be trash usually, so this is like way above any of that. This is deep, reformed, insightful exposition of the text in relation to the Reformed doctrine of covenant theology. So, go ahead and read it for that reason, if nothing else. I don't want to undersell the whole thing. We're probably a bit harsh on those issues, but the things that I think, and I think this is what we've said for previous articles in previous episodes, is that it might be perfect to go through with someone who's still on the edge of things. They're not necessarily, they're just perhaps interested in covenant theology. They really are looking at it seriously from a biblical perspective. They want to see the text. They want to engage with the texts. Yeah. And this will not leave you wanting. I mean, he takes you to actual texts. They're deep points. They're well founded in the passage. Even things like just reminders that, hey, the word covenant is used like a lot in Hebrews, so go check that out, and you have to reckon with that at some level. Just simple points through to the more technical exegetical ones, but very helpful. Like another thing I appreciated in terms of what he was saying, this is more because I suppose I'm preaching through Hebrews now, picking this up as we go, but the unique interplay that the author of Hebrews has with this concept of a high priest and the covenant. So it's not just covenant, it's not just high priest, it's high priest and covenant, and he really connects those dots, and they become very important to his argument. And so I thought that Kara brought that out well. Or at least, again, it's one of those little elements that get mentioned that are really helpful little nuggets, as you mentioned, if you're preaching through it. This is huge. He does make allusion to the vast triangle.
What is the vast triangle, Mike?
The vast triangle. Well,
let me just throw a little softball in there for you.
No, I mean, I'm not going to talk about the vast triangle tonight, but okay, what it is, just to in case someone has no idea what we're talking about, God is vast, the biblical theologian that we're always on about, precursor decline in many ways. He sort of brought it all together a little bit more than, if we've got type and or shadow and substance, or type and anti-type, we're thinking in terms of a horizontal plane usually. We're going from old covenant to new covenant, and I suppose
Progress.
I mean, that's great, and that's all good. the one the potential for a problem there is that we're seeing that something is only happening in the new covenant that wasn't happening in the old covenant. So a lot of what we think about in Reformed theology versus, let's say, I don't know, some new covenant theology or dispensationalism, where we're seeing the work of the Spirit, we're seeing all of these things, we're seeing the covenant of grace being really administered and sacramentally so through those types and shadows in the Old Testament. And so when we get to the new, it's not so much that we now first have access for the first time to these things, but it's just the redemptive historical administration is now, it's changed and centered on those things. But anyway, so that's where I think more than anything else for me, that's where the triangle that Foss drew so famously was helpful, in that the bottom of the triangle is this flow from Old Testament to New Testament. Imagine just a horizontal plane. But then you got these two arrows coming down, from the heavenly realities, and he's just saying it's not just the ones, because I think most of us get that the reality of Christ coming down is the true tabernacle, is the substance and essence of the new covenant. It is that foretaste of that heavenly reality. I think most people get that side of the triangle, but he says don't forget the other side, that you've got this the heavenly realities came down but were foreshadowed at that point. That's the only difference. But they still had access. Just brings it all together, and allows you to see the eschatology of the Old Testament in many ways, and really the soteriology was substantive and fits well.
I find that very helpful, especially on the issue of the temple. Remember the book, The Climax of the Ages? E.G. White, blue cover, with the amazing pictures and the story of the martyrs in the church. And for those of you who don't know, this is that Seventh-day Adventist book, which was very widespread in South Africa. I got hold of that as a young Christian, and man, it messed me up for years and years and years. It was just, the text in Hebrews that talk about the heavenly temple. And so E.G. White had a vision that in the 1870s, Jesus finally took the blood that he had spilt on the cross, waited 1,840-ish years, and then presented the blood. And then the gates of heaven were opened, and now finally people could get saved.
Yes.
And man, that just messed me up. So just anything that clarifies the temple in Hebrews.
Totally.
And,
no,
helpful.
Exactly. That is it. I think half of the thing with Voss is, it's like you go backwards from Klein, and it's like where is the dynamite? You just don't, it's almost you take it all for granted. But those things are just massive.
If you read Klein first, he steals all his thunder.
Yeah, exactly. So no, it's really helpful, and just seeing it all together. It's basically, I don't know. It's really just a deepened biblical theological sort of understanding in Hebrews of the covenant of grace. Really is what we're talking about in many ways. You're seeing the unity of it all. You're seeing the way that it works and how. But I suppose there's that eschatological element that's brought out. That's important there, that what Klein would talk about as intrusions. You've got these intruded realities of heaven, happening in the Old Testament and the New. But I suppose it just helps to show the relationship of them all in that triangle. So more we could say about that, definitely. It's had a lot of press, that triangle, and it's been good. But anyway, so moving forward, just to wrap this up, unless this turns into a massively long one. Imagine that. Oh, that'd be crazy.
That's the trouble with when tired people start talking. They don't know when to stop.
Oh yeah, dude, crazy. So I think actually I'm just going to go right over that. The other thing is just to see how Abraham, he goes through the individual covenants in relation to Hebrews. I enjoyed that as well. So basically he's like, how does Abraham feature in Hebrews? How does David feature in Hebrews? How does Moses feature in Hebrews? And that was really good. But that's where it kind of stops getting good for me. It gets like a little odd towards the end, where I'll go ahead and read it to you. And he says some things that I don't feel 100% comfortable with. They're kind of like, maybe, I don't know, full on. But again, that's me being overly critical. And, someone who's just wrestling with these things for the first time is going to just appreciate all of this. But for example, he says, to conclude, the Davidic covenant in Hebrews, the key Old Testament text, blah, blah, blah. These texts all assert that the Davidic covenant was in reality made with Jesus Christ. The importance of the Davidic covenant in Hebrews is that, 1, it emphasizes and confirms the divine sonship of Christ, and 2, connects Christ's kingly office to his priestly office. So I'm like, I think that I totally agree with where that goes, but it's almost like, I feel like it's super important to say, no, the covenant was made with David, and there is an administrative, it is true that it is organically connected to the covenant made with Christ. But as soon as you start bypassing that exegetical administration thing, you start entering into these areas.
You start getting a two-sided triangle.
I suppose, yeah. And you just, it's sort of, it again, this age-old problem, it just sort of mixes the organic, the theological construct with the organic unfolding. and it's exegetical particulars, in each covenant, which I've noticed that Reformed people really like to do. They like to just talk about the covenant of grace as the Davidic covenant, and like there's no distinction
they
at all.
Flatten the line, tend towards flattening the line. Yeah.
So that was probably, that's my least problematic thing. And then obviously when you get to Moses, it's like he says, to summarize, the person of Moses is presented very positively. The Mosaic covenant is termed the first, becoming old, my Lord's covenant. It is primarily connected to the ceremonial aspects, in contrast to Christ's priesthood and sacrifice. This covenant is a copy of the heavenly realities, but as a copy, it has intentional God-ordained deficiencies. Israel sins and does not keep this covenant. It ends when the heavenly reality Christ comes as the God-man to accomplish his work. There are numerous contrasts and continuities between the Mosaic and New Covenants that occur in almost every sentence. To conclude, the author of Hebrews uses the Mosaic covenant primarily to understand Christ's priesthood and sacrifice within the context of the vertical, earthly, heavenly realities, and within the context of the horizontal, redemptive, historical movement, first to second. That's what I'm talking about. It's sort of like, that's kind of true, but yeah, it's like it almost makes it sound like, well, there we go. There's almost no difference between Moses and the New Covenant, bar the actual substance stuff, And that's just hopelessly, underplayed at that level.
Yeah, we see more discontinuity than continuity.
Yeah, I mean, it's
almost like the theological points made emphasizing Christ's superiority, which is the argument of Hebrews, are set against the backdrop of Moses as a negative relief, not as a flat line of continuity.
Yes, exactly. So those kinds of things just to watch out for, I would say. But again, great otherwise. And then I think probably this is the one is this worth even saying? Okay, for some, the problem with the Reform view, he says, is usually the Mosaic covenant and the antithetical contrast between it and the New Covenant in Hebrews. The problem, however, should be mitigated upon realizing that, one, the contrast is primarily between the ceremonial aspects of the Mosaic covenant's priesthood and sacrifices as compared to the reality of Christ's priesthood and sacrifice. And two, the heavenly reality did exist during the Old Testament, and the Mosaic covenant is a shadow of this reality. So that's the kind of, it feels a little bit on the vague side to me, but guess we don't. Jeez, what's happening here? It's trying to pull up a flip.
Ghost in the machine.
Yeah. Anyway. All right, cool. So that's a wrap. We're going to cut that book at that point, and it's still got 2 whole big sections to go, but I'm not feeling very nerdy on the history side at the moment.
This is the podcast that introduces you to good books.
Well, hey, we did a whole massive section of this book, and it's huge, Yeah. So I think we need to just give ourselves a little bit of a
I think we're
pat on the back.
We cleared 800 pages on my iBooks version.
I mean. Your iBooks version. Yeah, true.
20 pages, 20 words a page, something like that.
Then so I think it has been significant. I'm just going to our YouTube channel quickly because I wanted to let's see if I can get it here quick. 2-Age Sojourner in our recent because just thinking about next level in our recent one on with the London Lyceum guys, I said I would. Oh, that's actually I thought the music was playing, but that's actually the YouTube thing. So Andrew Caswell, you
should just end now.
I know Andrew Caswell, who listens frequently, and he's really appreciated his encouragement. But anyway, so he picked up because I mentioned I'm actually going to put this thing on the show notes, that essay. So guys, I'm just surprised that you gave the link in the show notes. I mean, this is now next level. I loved the content. So thank you, Andrew. Appreciate that. And I agree. I think we're going places,
Amen.
It's not just talk
Onwards
anymore.
and
It's like we've got show notes. We're on Spotify.
We have all our co-hosts.
So, well, Andre, where is Andre? I don't even know. He got his booster. What is that even? I don't know.
Says he's dying.
Oh my goodness. It's just Yeah, I think we all just need a break, and we're complaining about boosters and stuff. It's like we're all wearing thin. But again, moving forward, hopefully we've got some cool things to do there beyond guests. Like, I don't know, I still have this great big desire to have some gear. Don't you think that'd be cool? That would be
Definitely.
like finally, we would finally have arrived when that happens. And I think we've established a bit of
I've
a
got some
pattern.
gear. See this, the merch.
Yeah, you've got the merch there, but we need to like make it publicly accessible, bro. So basically, unless you want to start selling those guys, but basically,
Kmart, $7.
Yeah, got to make your own. Some assembly required. But I mean, I think we've established a pattern. Basically, how we do this is we just talk about it over and over again until eventually it just happens.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to do about this merch.
Subliminal programming.
Yeah, we're just saying, listen, the merch is coming, and we know the merch is coming. End of story. Okay, now, last little thing. What are you reading in the holidays, and what are you?
Okay.
What's your big thing now? And
so
just give people some ideas here. What did two-age sojourners read?
I bought myself some biographies, so just some light reading. So I've been working through Matthew Barrett's Simply Trinity.
Oh yeah.
So I'm working through that for the third time now.
Mm-hmm.
I see there's some hating going on classical theism. So I just think, I mean, the challenge that I have is this: can I confess God with the early church? If I'm going to be confessing God with Athanasius, with Augustine, with Anselm, with those guys, am I worshiping a different God? So classical theism, if it's true, then we have the same God. If classical theism is not true, then we've got a different God. Or is there some sort of via media, some middle ground?
Yeah.
So for me, it's I think it's a very important question. So I'm digging deep on it and really loving it.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I'm listening to at the moment, this was a recommendation. I'm listening to Christianity Today's, don't stone me, The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill.
Oh yeah. It's a bit old news on this side.
I mean, it is old news, but it's the podcasts out there.
No, I mean the podcast is quite old news. This whole series, yeah.
Yeah, it was recommended to me. Thought I'd just dig in again. I remember I tracked with it at the time.
Yeah.
And now they're going on the sort of the other side of how it all happened.
Yeah.
Yep. And then I've got some biographical stuff. So the Crossway series on the Christian life.
Edwards. Yeah.
There's Edwards.
Nice.
I think you recommended this one.
Yeah, that was a great one.
Man,
that was by Bolt, right?
Yep, that's the one. And I've got Owen as well. I've got Owen at home.
All right. So you gotta actually say the book titles because people are listening.
So that's Bavinck on the Christian Life by John Bolt.
There we go. Good,
and
thank you.
Jonathan Edwards on the Christian Life by Dane C. Ortland. And then the John Owen on the Christian Life is by Matthew Barrett and Michael Haken.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, some really good stuff on Quakers. Really enjoying the Quaker stuff. It's very good.
Oh yeah, nice. Okay, my turn. I got all happening on Kindle. This one, I'll see the cover though. It's called The Septuagint, What It Is and Why It Matters. This new one I found. Gregory R. Lanier and William A. Ross.
That's the same dude who just wrote the last chapter in this Covenant book.
Oh, no. Yes. Okay, cool. Totally. Yeah. There we go. Continuity, baby. Beautiful. Okay. So anyways, I haven't read any of that yet, but I'm excited. That's one of the things I wanted to have a little look at. And then, I've got these, so I got a few books by Louis Marcos, who I'm really not sure where he is theologically. I think he's probably like very weak, reformed, sort of strong evangelical, not actually more like, I don't even know. But, he's one of those Lewis fans, so like you never know where Lewis fans are. They're sort of like half Roman Catholic, half evangelical. But anyway, so I've got
Platonic.
Exactly. So you've got a few, get to the cover. Can you see that one? From Achilles to Christ.
Yes, I saw.
You seen this one
the other day.
Okay, great. So yeah, he's just sort of like his whole thing is, and this came out of
the guy that was just on Credo podcast recently.
Really, was he? I wouldn't be surprised actually.
See, because he didn't do From Plato to Christ as well.
Yes, he did. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's the guy. He's
Ah,
just being interviewed by Matthew Barrett
no way. So
at
he's solid.
Houston from Houston Baptist.
Yes, that's the guy.
Yeah, I would say the weak reformed, but
Yeah,
like total
yeah.
like just embracing natural theology and
Well, yeah,
Augustinian
natural theology.
Neoplatonism. Yeah,
Exactly, par excellence. So I was kind of on a natural theology trip myself, but it sort of came, it blended. It went like classical theism, natural theology via Stoicism, and then that took me to
and now you've just triggered every presuppositional Van Tillian out there.
oh, dude, yeah. Now more and more, I got no time for that stuff. I honestly, like, I'm seeing, I've always been a bit of a, just like, I mean, I don't go as far as, in fact, I think he, to be honest, from what I've read already, so here's the other one quickly, that he wrote,
Yep.
and it's called "The Myth Made Fact," taken from, that famous statement in C.S. Lewis where he talks about Christ being myth and fact, but it's called "Reading Greek and Roman Mythology," and so he's just trying to really get you to do what Lewis always wants you to do, just see everything as a kind of precursor.
Outside my comfort zone, brother. I believe in total depravity.
Yeah, well, exactly, and this is the thing. I mean,
Yeah.
they talk. I mean, I've often read Roman Catholic authors that talk about, they just embrace a full on. Oh yeah, the Stoics were kind of like they were as Christian as you could be before
Christians
Christ.
without Christ.
Yeah, exactly. They'll just sort of say it. They'll be like, oh well, there we go, natural revelation at its
Great
highest.
theologians, Augustine, Plato.
Exactly. They'll just talk about him like there's zero difference. So funny. But yes, I'm obviously not there, and I think even C.S. Lewis makes me a little uncomfortable with this stuff sometimes. Yeah. But I think where this guy is, he's trying to sort of walk a little bit of a line, but he ends up just using a lot of that standard sort of Roman Catholic lingo, and tries to bring it into an evangelical framework. So I think, but that said, you don't have to buy into that to really appreciate what he's saying, because I think here's where the doctrine of common grace kicks in. It's you really don't have to buy into all of that crazy natural law idea. Yeah. All truth is God's truth. It's just as simple as that, and that is really amazing. And as you go through it, I feel like it's almost. Do you remember like that big craze everyone went through when everyone was trying to redeem film? Like every movie.
That was during my fundamentalist stage when I wasn't watching films. I judged every Christian that did.
Right. Yeah. We used to read about people like you. But yeah, it was just like any movie, the more secular, the better. You come along, and the purpose was to engage with it and then to basically show how it's all basically the gospel.
Yeah, so every hero tale where the hero does a self-sacrificial act is an echo of Christ.
It's an echo of, and I think that, like, obviously to the degree that it's true, it is, but I think you start getting into some pretty weird zones, like, wow, look, he was suffering in that scene. Therefore, we have the passive sufferings of Christ in view, and it just gets crazy. So I feel like that happens with the look at classical literature sometimes. But I believe that this guy's really good in terms of just his knowledge of things, and C.S. Lewis, and so it reminds me a little bit of when you overemphasize typology in the Old Testament. Even, to be honest, it's where even Rahab's red scarf or red talks about the blood of Christ, the scarlet thread, yeah, and you've got the 5 stones in David's hand, and it gets like that. It starts feeling like that. They do exactly the same thing. Well, not exactly the same thing, but it starts feeling that way. And so, so you don't. There is a place for books like that for me in my world. I pick up a book like that, no problem, because I just love, look. 5 stones, who cares? Like, I'll just totally. If 5 stones are the 5 points of Calvinism, and David was actually talking about 5 points of Calvinism, I'm not going to buy it, but I'm always down to hear about the 5 points of Calvinism. At any point, if you're going to tell the points through the lens of David's stones in his sling, well, that's on you. But for me, I'm just all about the story, so it's all good. So that's how I kind of approach these books, and I find them just like kind of relaxing. I don't know why. This is weird and twisted, but it is what it is.
I used to have a big heresy section. Yeah, collect all those books.
No, you know what it is? It's not heresy. What it is for me is, I think it's just. In fact, I wonder if I can pull this up now, because he did say this at some point. which I thought was actually really a good point.
I mean, a lot of that stuff for me is like, Paul on Mars Hill, and he's appealing to the poets. So there are common grace notions. There is that common ground. There are ideas that you can draw on out of the unbelieving worldview, which even they have stumbled onto, even though they're stumbling around in the dark. And you can use that as an apologetic point, as an entry point in an evangelistic conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
If you want to look really intelligent and put lots of like literature references in your books, then you store up those sorts of quotes.
Okay, so here we go. Here's the quote I was looking for. The Enlightenment privilege, the Enlightenment privileging of the fact over. Oh, let me start again.
Come on, holidays.
Yeah, the Enlightenment privileging of fact over value and reason over imagination has convinced large numbers of Christians. I was just thinking, Andre needed to be here for this because he loves this stuff too. You know, he's got like one foot in Roman Catholicism, and it's precisely for this reason. Okay, let me start again. The Enlightenment privileging of fact over value and reason over imagination has convinced large numbers of Christians, particularly my fellow Reformed and Evangelical Protestants, Nick Cleveley, to focus heavily on systematic theology and logic-based apologetics, while shying away from those more aesthetic, imagination-based aspects of the faith that resist rigorous analysis. By so doing, they have cut themselves off from what I would boldly call the ministry of myth. And he's, obviously leaning on Lewis there quite a bit. So I bring that up, not so much to agree or disagree with him, but more just I think that ministry of myth thing is why I gravitate towards this stuff when I get tired. You know, I think that's actually what's happening.
I don't think that's too strange for us. I mean,
no, that's fine. Yeah.
If you listen to someone like Tim Keller, when we did our apologetics series, I mean, Tim Keller is all about that. You know, if you're exegeting culture and you're looking for the narratives that are in the culture, and you can use these access points in the literature and the art to actually access those narratives that are in the culture. I'll now keep quiet.
I don't know why it keeps switching on.
Actually, you did that on purpose. You're just getting bored or something.
I do not know why it does that. That's so weird. Someone keeps switching it on. I know. Anyway. Who cares, right? Anyway, so that's
what else
a little
are you
bit.
Reading, Mike?
What else am I reading? Let's see if there's anything else interesting. Yeah, one last little spiel, and then we go. And then we wrap it up for the year, folks. I'm reading something on this. It's apparently very famous. This book, the Socratic Method, a practitioner's handbook. I always feel like the Socratic Method, as the many years that I've looked at this, it just eludes me a little bit, you know.
Questioning method.
I just find like, what exactly is the method, and where what's the deal? Where are the rules for this method?
I mean, Socrates basically confessed that he didn't always have all the answers, so he just kept questioning.
But there's supposedly a method behind the questioning, you know, and this is what I'm trying to get my head around. I mean, anyone can ask questions. And keep asking and just basically go, why?
Yeah, what's your authority for saying that? You know?
Yeah, exactly. Why? But I think there's more something or other there. And I hope there is, because otherwise everyone is just leaning on this thing that no one actually knows what it is. And, you know, it feels a little bit like that to me sometimes. But so I'm going to dig into that one. And then I've got Dietrich Bonhoeffer on the Psalms as the prayer book of the Bible, if we wanted to read that for a while. And a few other things, but I wanted to take a look at Derek Cooper's Basics of Latin too. Been had that on the shelf, man. But we'll see how far I get on this. Probably not. They're probably going to get halfway through the Septuagint one, and that's it. You know?
I've been listening to a lot of audiobooks on the Nuremberg trials.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was like a big 24-hour book on the Nuremberg trials. It was absolutely fascinating. And then I listened to a book on Auschwitz from one of the doctors, who was one of the Jewish guys who was co-opted to become a doctor in Auschwitz. Yeah, very disturbing. Yeah,
sure. You know, it was disturbing. I remember watching you guzzle nasty movies like on the plane. I mean, dude, you just like.
No, that was a classic. Pride and Prejudice. and zombies.
you just didn't even flinch. I mean, like, but I was like, we're hardly taking off.
That's like comedies now, bro.
Yeah, I mean, bro, it got so dark there watching you on that TV. I just realized. I'm talking about myth and narrative. You got your fix that day for your whole ministry is sorted. You got as
it's
much
a study in total depravity. It's like Jekyll and Hyde. I did Jekyll and Hyde recently as well. Yeah.
Did you? Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, there we go. That's a little bit about us. Who knows what Andrew's reading? Who knows?
He's dying.
He's not here. He's just doing his COVID thing. And let us know what you're reading. Just drop us a comment or two
in the show notes, and we'll definitely respond.
No, we'll of course we'll. I respond to everyone. Okay. By the way, if you responded to, that was me. Even though it says to it, I mean Nick's not doing it. But yeah, let us know. Hope you guys have a great holiday, and we'll pick it up. I don't know, like I want to say a month tops, but maybe it'll, maybe a little bit earlier than that. Maybe later. I don't know.
To be advised.
Actually, the latest I can say will be like halfway through Feb, so that'll be the latest. So you want to do it again? Double run. This guy just wants to go. He just wants to go. All right. In all fairness, what are you going to play us out with? What are you going to sing us a song? Something.
Sing a song.
We're all going on a summer holiday. Okay, ready?